Dusk unlocked the door to her apartment, feeling extremely on edge and angry from the songwriters' meeting. Who the hell did these no-hit wonders think they were? Acting like she was just some washed-up has-been, but when they didn't even have a single hit or albums under their seatbelts? Luna was reading a book when she entered the room, and Forn was closing her eyes and with her hands placed on the ground, which Dusk presumed what she meant was doing a ritual. "Hey," Luna cheerfully greeted, looking up from her book. "How was the meeting?" "Not great." Dusk tried to clean it up. "We've been issued us a challenge." "Well, that's kind of intense," Forn chuckled. "What exactly is this challenge?" "Let's sit down," Dusk said, sitting on the couch next to Luna, while Forn sat on the chair across from them. "So what happened is that our group, everyone reports on what they have wrote for the week, and I've just been saying that we're working on the video, since we haven't written anything new. Anyway, today I said that again. You know what they did? Those assholes made fun of me. They hadn't seen I hadn't written a song for the whole time since I've been a part of the group, and accused us of faking music video. Well, I'll show them. We're going to write the best damn song they've ever heard before next Friday's meeting." "Dusk, I don't mean to piss you off any further, but that the only thing is going to show them is that you have an easily bruised ego," Luna replied. "I completely agree," Forn nodded. "I had a weird vibe about this group from the beginning, and clearly I was right. Why do you care what they think? They challenged our band, and the Hex Girls don't stand a chance down against that easy challenge." Dusk hoped that she didn't sound stupid in her frustrated frenzy, but she was extremely pissed off at the groups implying that she didn't know how to write songs. "Making fun of you for not writing every week is ridiculous, and saying we're faking music video is even more outlandish," Luna responded. "Some people like writing regularly, and others like to write more intermittently when they get busy with other things. I don't think there's anything wrong with the way they do it." "Well, they all write songs every week, and claim that I'm just a slump because we don't," Dusk rebuked. Forn let out a sigh. "I don't want to stoop down to their level of meanness, but the only reason some of them could pump out a good song every week is because their songs are awful. It probably took 15 minutes for Brett to write that Nat Tracker rap. It could have been taken for Kelsey. Much longer needs to write the overly NSFW drivel." "What does Dawn have to say of all this?" Luna asked. Dusk was loath to admit that Dawn was contribute to the heckling, since she knew Forn and Luna already kinda didn't like her. "She thinks that I should write a song by next week as to prove them wrong. Putting out a music video that convinces the mayor to not implement the pipeline will be more than proof that we've been busy working on new content. And that you're a part of the band, that's continuing to just doing amazing, badass stuff," Forn rebuked. "If you're so pissed off by now, how are they treating you? Which sounds like you have every right to be. Just stop going to those meetings." "I think it's a good at least for one of us to be connected up to the upcoming songwriters," Dusk argued back. "Not if they're treating you like shit," Forn snapped back, getting more defensive now. "You go ahead and write a song if you want, but I don't feel like you need to prove anything to anybody. We're already busy enough as it is getting our music video created by Friday." "Fine, I'll write a song by myself. Maybe we'll use it for the band on our next album." Dusk crossed her arms. Forn was right about the music video was going to be amazing when it was done, but she couldn't let the group get away with challenging her like that. She had to write a song for her own to prove their asses they were dead wrong. "Sounds good," Forn sternly nodded, as she got up and walked her way into her bedroom. "Dusk, if you don't mind me saying so, I feel like the moments that you shine are just most that you don't give a crap what anyone thinks," Luna spoke up. "We're not trying to tell you what to do. We just don't want to see you get worked up about people, and then don't have your best interest at heart." "Well, thank you," Dusk replied. "To clarify, I don't give a fuck of what any of them think. I just want to see the looks on their faces when I prove their arrogant asses wrong." "Well, if you say so," Luna muttered, making Dusk feel like that she didn't really believe in anything the blonde had just said. Unfortunately, Dusk also wasn't so sure she believed in the words that had left her in her own mouth. As much as it pained her to realize this, in her mind it went through everything what she was most accomplished by any of the people there. It was shocking that none of them had seemed to think of her that way, and she needed to redeem her image in their eyes. She was determined to prove that she was incompetent, badass rocker chick than she thought of all of them intentionally envisioned her as. So I think we should have the first segment being the Auburn footage. Then we cut to the part where we overheard the construction worker dismissing the leak, Thorne explained, taking a bite of her sandwich that Dusk had made. All three girls were at Jack's eating their lunch after their shifts. Today they just gone back to their formal routine of discussing and planning out the music during lunch. Dusk admittedly liked, and it felt like a breath of fresh air, then returning to the days that she remembered so fondly. Isn't it just enough to show footage of how the situations played out? Or should we include bits of us performing in between? Dusk pondered. Honestly, I wonder if it would be a combination of both, Luna replied. If you want this to feel like a real documentary, maybe the split-up bits can be us explaining our feelings about the situation, since it's not really going to come across with the footage alone. Yeah, so many spliced-up scenes with us performing might make it seem like filler, Thorne agreed, but I think the explanation bits will be perfect. Thorne was interrupted with a familiar voice greeted them. It caused her to spin around to see who it was. Hey, how you guys doing? Dawn inquired. We're doing good, Thorne curtly replied, seemingly a bit annoyed. Dusk wondered if it was because their brainstorming session was interrupted, or Thorne was mad at how Dawn treated Dusk. She presumed it was the latter. Awesome, Dusk, I know you probably want to write that song, but I have a suggestion. Do you want to go out to Dayton's aunt's place and write together? I've got a lot of writing to do for my new gig, so maybe we can help each other out. Although Dusk was a tad wary of Dawn after what happened on Friday, she immediately found the gesture nice and was excited at the thought of going to Dayton's aunt's place to clear her mind and get some writing done. They were making excellent progress on the planning out video, so why not switch gears and be productive on both projects that she needed to accomplish this week? Yeah, sure, when do you want to go? Dusk asked. I was thinking now, Dawn said. That way we have the whole afternoon to write. Alright, I'm ready. I'll see you guys later, Dusk waved to Thorne and Luna. Thorne just looked a bit offended. Did you just want us to continue playing the video without you? Thorne asked, her tone stern and annoyed. We're sort of in the middle of planning our session here. Oh, Dusk immediately had assumed that they were stopping at a good point with the video. Since they pretty much had everything pointed out with the broad scene, it was just a matter of discussing in such little detail. Given that they were almost done with their lunch, she presumed that it'd be happening tomorrow. I mean, I thought we had it almostly done, other than planning out the footage that gets where. Oh, cool, Dawn exclaimed. Did you film the mayor saying they were going to pause the construction at that protest or something? Thorne clearly had been trying to hold back her frustration, but she looked absolutely enraged now, and so did Luna. Dusk, that was supposed to be a secret, Thorne snapped. Oh, don't worry, I haven't told anyone outside the group, Dawn assured. She's my friend, Thorne. I'm allowed to tell her the things I'm doing in my life, Dusk defended, angry about Thorne's outburst. Dusk was as much as part of the band as Thorne was, so as far as she was concerned, Thorne had no right to try and force her into not saying a word to anybody. Besides, I didn't even tell her most of it. I just said we're making the bet about the protest. You know what, fine. Go off with her however you want, Thorne growled, clearly trying to bite her tongue. Thorne presumed that she berated about something in private. Sounds good. Have a great day, Dusk sassed passive-aggressively. And good luck with the video. You have my permission to work on it, without me, this afternoon. Dusk thought of heard Thorne scoff as she walked away, but she didn't really care. Given Luna's annoyed look on her face, Dusk presumed she was upset too, but she was likely too meek to speak up to protest around Dawn, whom she didn't know well. Dawn and Dusk didn't say anything much to each other until they left Jack's. Once they had both gotten safely outside, Dawn was the first to speak up. What the hell is Thorne's problem? Dawn sneered. Typically Dusk would try to defend Thorne, but deep down she really did care about her. But her anger clouded her judgment as she was all in for jumping on the Thorne bashing wagon. I don't frickin' know, but I'm sorry, Dusk answered. She just wants us to keep new developments in the band for a secret for some reason. She even yelled at me about a few weeks ago when I shared something with you. She was angry enough that she thought about referencing that Thorne seemed to have no problem sharing the information with Julia, although she wouldn't admit it in her angry state, but she cared about Thorne not to vilify her completely, so she decided to leave it as what she was said. That's bullshit, Dawn swore. Somebody ought to teach that stupid ass that there's nothing wrong with you sharing info about your band with your friends. Dusk had never seen Dawn's car before, which they would have given drive away, given that Thorne and Luna would drive the soccer mom minivan home. She saw Dawn walk over towards a blue car, which had a bumper significantly scratched up, and the windshield slightly cracked. Dusk opened the passenger door while Dawn got in the driver's seat. I ought to suggest we take your car just to make Thorne walk home, Dawn snickered. As much as Dusk liked the idea, and Dawn appreciated the friendship, she did seem to have a bit of a tad mean streak. Forcing Luna and Thorne to walk home in the cold was something only a major asshole would do. So Dusk didn't quite understand why Dawn would joke about such a thing. Over the past few weeks, Dusk had noticed that Dawn seemed to have an extreme sense of humor. Dusk laughed politely as to not offend Dawn, although she didn't practically think what Dawn had said was funny. So you said you told me about the video. Now that we agree that Thorne's a bitch for making you hide that stuff from your friends, I'm curious as to why you haven't shared about that video, Dawn inquired as she was driving. Dusk was caught off guard by Dawn asking that question. Her bitching about Thorne was just blowing off some steam. She didn't actually intend to divulge the band's secrets into Dawn, and she probably wouldn't have made it share that video was the protest about a few weeks ago. Although she hated to admit it, her strong reaction towards Thorne's particularly just frustration and surprise from being caught. However, now Dusk was really stuck. She would be forced to share the band's secret with Dawn, or face annihilating her friend. We are just thinking about incorporating some footage from our protest video to make it a documentary style, Dusk replied. We're just planning out what footage goes in when you came. Whoa, that's an amazing idea, Dawn exclaimed, causing Dusk to beam. Because of Thorne and Luna's awareness of Dusk's sharing ideas, she would never had the idea of hers with another musician before unveiling to the world. It felt really good to get feedback that she was on the right track. I don't know how you do this, but one of these days you'll have to figure out how to kick Thorne out of your band or something. Honestly, Luna seems right. You're cool, but Thorne seems like a wet blanket who thinks she's a princess. I don't get why she thinks it was better than anyone. Admittedly, the feeling of not understanding was something mutual. Dusk was certainly pissed at Thorne for her reaction today, because as far as she was concerned, Dusk still had the withheld part of the information from Dawn, at least a few moments ago. However, she certainly didn't have the intent of kicking Thorne out of the band or making her walk home in the freezing cold. She didn't quite understand why Dawn so intensely disliked the black-haired bandmate. Dusk could feel the stress begin to go away as Dayton's great-aunt's house came into sight. This would be a perfect place to unwind and get things rolling with the song, although she was a tad bit disappointed that she was missing it. Hopefully Luna and Thorne would plan out the good part of the video, and that a quick process would be made on both projects that Dusk needed to finish by Friday. The two girls got out of the vehicle and walked up to the front porch's stairs. It was beginning to snow just a bit, so the porch just had the lightest covering of snow on it. The field surrounding the house looked absolutely beautiful, as a layer of snow lightly sprinkled on the grass and trees. As Dawn pulled out the key out of her pocket and unlocked the front door, Dusk didn't realize how exactly Dawn had a key, but she presumed Dayton must have given it to her. As the door opened, a strange thing happened. Dusk heard the normal creak from the door, but after the door had fully opened, another inexplainable creak could be heard. What was that? Dusk asked. That creak? It's just a door, Dawn explained. The first one was, but it was weird. The second creak came right after the door had opened. It sounded almost distant. Sounded like it came from the kitchen, Dusk clarified. It's an old house. It's probably getting settling or something. At that moment, Dusk could hear another creak. The creak sounded too loud for it just to be a house settling. It could almost mean something was open. As girls entered the house and walked in the kitchen, Dusk saw a cupboard wide open. Did somebody leave that open when we meet here on Friday? Dusk asked. I guess so. I don't know why they would be going in the cupboards. I don't even remember seeing it down when we left. Who knows? Dawn shrugged. She seemed very unbothered by the situation, so Dusk decided not to concern herself with it either. Dusk heard more creak as she ascended to the stairs. This time it was obvious it was from her feet touching each stair. Although Dayton's ghost story definitely had her on edge just thinking about the house for a bit. Even if she did think, it was beautiful and cool. I think I'm going to write my son about my blowout with Thorn today. I'm not going to release it, so why not just get my stress out? Dusk threw out there. There's always the second album or the first solo album if the band breaks up. Dawn laughed. Anyway, I've got most of the song written. I'm stuck on a couple of lines. Mind helping me before you start yours? Of course, Dusk agreed. Alright, so the manager I'm working with wanted me to change a couple of lines of that song I mentioned last week, Dawn informed. I'll just read out loud to you. You're crying in your bed, boo-hoo-hoo, 'cause you're sad wishing I was still climbing on top of you. What do you think? Dusk was admittedly surprised by the lyrics. She wasn't offended or grossed out by it, but she would definitely not have expected such a risky lyrics coming from Dawn. If anything was the type of generic devil that she would expect from Kelsey. That pretty good, Dusk lied. Even she admittedly didn't love the lyric. More mature than I have expected, to be honest. I'm glad you noticed, Dawn smiled. My new manager said I need my image up a bit. But I was fine as it is, but that people just said they wanted appeal. Dusk admittedly was a bit disgusted. Not a bit because of the lyrics, but the concept itself just screamed corporate sellout to her. Why the hell was any point of signing something that didn't have personal significance? She didn't want to be unsupportive of Dawn's new record, although she bit her tongue and delved into the pastries. I am most proud of this lyric. Our exes is something we both loathe. Let's start out something new and rip our clothes off, Dawn continued. Dusk was admittedly repulsed by that Dawn would resort to sing that nonsense. Wasn't it mean in a meaningful slightest ear to just her fame? She took in pride in her lyrics and increasingly edgy. Do you actually enjoy writing that kind of stuff? Dusk double-checked. It's kind of generic. I am if it gets me famous, Dawn laughed. It's not meaningful to me or anything, but it's generic of what people want. That way it's broad enough to be relatable. Dusk usually would have had spoken her mind, but she had yet to prove her songwriting to Dawn and the rest of the group. She didn't feel like she was in the position to disagree with Dawn. After she'd proven herself what an amazing badass songwriter she was, then perhaps Dawn would more likely be able to listen to her. That's fair. Anyway, I'm gonna get started on writing, Dusk informed. With that, Dusk took a notebook and, laying on the desk, entered in the office, sat down in one of the rockers, and began channeling some of her own feelings into her paper of hers. Dusk felt a bit overwhelmed throughout the writing process. She felt like the song had to be perfect. No matter how many times she reminded herself just to write what she is feeling, she got something down on her own paper. She was uncertain whether it was good enough for a song, but there were still several pieces missing, including the bridge with a chunk of the second verse. Besides all the pressure she was putting on herself, she felt admittedly thinking about Thorn. She was feeling frustrated about how strongly Thorn had reacted to sharing a minor detail with the video of Dawn, but she felt bad about leaving the middle part of the planning the video. Holy shit, it's already 8 o'clock? Dawn informed. We've been here for 7 hours. We should probably get back. How did your song come out? Pretty good. Do you want to hear it? Dusk asked. Maybe just for a brief expert. Save the rest for the meeting, Dawn replied. Dusk immediately had a very bit disappointed that she didn't want her to hear the whole song, because she was excited to share what she had with somebody, but Dusk supposedly getting her stressed out feelings throughout the writing a reward in its own self. I can do what I want. I won't listen to your taunts. Now you'll be the one that karma haunts. Dusk read the part of the chorus. That's pretty good, Dawn replied. So how does it feel to be writing again? It's been a while, isn't it? I wrote 3 months ago, Dusk sternly replied. She knew that Dawn was just teasing her, but immediately got under her skin. I mean, we all write every week, so in comparison that's a long time, Dawn chuckled. Anyway, let's head home. Hopefully that song would have gotten out your stresses and to talk with Thorn about in your paw, who has the under gag order. She's not that bad, Dusk defended. We just had a disagreement, that's all. We'll talk about it and I'll set her straight. Good for you, Dusk. It's good to see you standing up for yourself, Dawn replied. Dusk held back despite her frustration, but the standing up for yourself remark was a bit too far. Oh, come on, Dusk snapped. You're acting as if I'm some scared little weenie bitch who has no control over my band. We're just having a disagreement, whatever to share about the music video that hasn't come out yet. Disagreements are perfectly normal among friends. It doesn't mean Thorn's this overbearing ass like you're making her out to be. I mean, if you had control over your band, would you be able to decide whatever you share your information about your own work? Dawn challenged. Bands are a collaborative process. Technically, I could share anything I want, but it's the kind of thing to make sure that you're not making your bandmates uncomfortable, Dusk explained. Okay, if you say so, Dawn replied, which really rubbed Dusk the wrong way. Her tone was serious and not jittering, but the remark was still confiscating. If Dusk was going to have to argue about it with Thorn tonight, she didn't really have the energy to argue with Dawn too, so she just dropped it. As Dusk glanced around the room, she almost didn't want to leave the peacefulness of the environment. This place felt like a calm in the storm. Leaving and going home would mean she would have to confront Thorn, which she really didn't want to do. At first, Dusk wondered why she was so afraid of arguing with Thorn, as she usually was fine in being in your face and combative in defense if something felt really strong about it. Upon reflecting it, heading down the stairs, walking through the hallway up in the front entrance, Dusk came to the realization that their anxiety was all because she practically knew it was her fault as well. In hindsight, she would have had told the whole group about the video and the protest. In that moment, she wanted to gain respect with the whole group by sharing the cool thing the band was doing. And she knew it was directly against what Thorn and Luna requested for her. She wanted her new friend group to take her seriously by showing them how cool the band was. By this far, she utterly failed at that. As Dusk headed out from the front door and got in Dawn's car, her mental state began to spiral. Dusk realized a discomforting thought as she daydreamed out the window while Dawn drove away. She just wasn't practically at fault. She was fully at fault. She shouldn't have shared any of that shit with the group, because she promised Thorn and Luna that she wouldn't, and she felt that Thorn was blowing a bit out of proportion. But either way, the painful truth was the same. She had broken the promise. The blonde felt a bit of pain pit in her stomach as Dawn pulled up to her apartment building. All right, good luck, Dawn well-wished. Remember, don't back down until you got what you want. Thanks, Dusk somberly said, as she got out of the vehicle and unlocked the door. She immediately had no idea what her defense was going to be, all because she thought about it. Thorn blowing the situation out of proportion was only the small part of the problem. Dusk breaking the promise a violation of Thorn and Luna's trust, that she cared about them though she messed up in not respecting her friends' comfort zones. Dusk walked up to the staircase of the apartment, dreading for the worst. Knowing Thorn and Luna always locked the door this late at night, she pulled out her key and unlocked the door, streaming out as she opened it. She expected to see Thorn and Luna cross-armed and frustrated. However, she was shocked to see the living room completely empty. A quick look at the kitchen also showed it was empty. There were no lights in either of the girls' rooms. Dusk took off her shoes and headed down the hall to see what could have happened to them. She first peeked in Luna's room, and she was quite surprised that discovered she was fast asleep. Next, she looked at Thorn's room and saw that the black-haired goth was also fast asleep, cozied up in that tan blanket comfortably. Dusk was thrown off a bit by that they have both gone to sleep, although she supposed that it would be shortly before their bedtime anyway. She expected to be up late discussing this with her roommates, so she felt quite a bit out of sorts that they have already gone to sleep. Dusk was supposed to be doing nothing but sleep. Perhaps Thorn and Luna were already in bed, blessing in disguise. She told herself she needed to sleep anyway, and would be much more refreshed to deal with this in the morning. Dusk had to fight the urge to stay in bed as her alarm rang even more usual in the morning. She was dreading the inevitability of being confronted by Thorn when she got out of bed, but she supposed that the sooner she got out of the way, the sooner she could stop being on edge. Dusk sheepishly fumbled over to the shower, but noticed that the door closed. Just as Dusk was about to switch gears and walk in the kitchen, Ford opened the bathroom door. She felt a bit silly given her own roommate, but she was lost for words for a brief second. "Hi," Dusk said, immediately feeling like a dumbass. "Hi," Ford replied with a slight chuckle, due to how awkward the situation is. "We need to talk. I asked you not to tell the video to Dawn." "Oh, come on. It's not like I told her that much," Dusk snapped. "Telling her it's about the protest is a lot," Ford growled. Dusk saw Luna put down the bowl of cereal she was eating and got up from the chair in the kitchen. She walked over to them and chimed in the conversation. "I know I was quiet yesterday at Jack's, but I'm not too happy with you either," Luna admitted. "Dusk, why would you go tell Dawn about our video? I thought we were all on the same page and we weren't going to share our new projects with the other people without talking first." Dusk was ready to argue back, but her coincidence prompted her to realize that any argument she would give would end up making a decision to disagree. As much as the truth hurt to admit, Ford and Luna were right. She shouldn't have gone and told Dawn about the whole core about the video. "Look," Dusk's tone softened. "You know what? You're right. I'm really sorry. We're all talking about what we worked on a couple weeks ago about the songwriting meeting, and I felt like I wasn't sharing anything about the band. I shared a little detail of working on the music video, and Dawn guessed it was about the protest that day. We asked her about the pipeline in the bookstore. I just blurted out without thinking. I'm sorry. I'm a fucking idiot. I won't do it again." With Dusk's heartfelt confession, Ford significantly warmed up. "It's okay, Dusk. We all made mistakes. I get how hard it can be a situation." "Thanks," a faint smile formed on Dusk's face. "Well, I forgive you too, Dusk," Luna replied. "If you don't mind me asking, did they pressure you into telling them?" "No, I guess my big mouth just spilled it because I thought I should. Nobody pushed me to do anything like I didn't want to," Dusk answered. "Seriously though, I mean it. I'm not going to share anything with them about the video or any other unreleased project without asking first." "Thank you. I really appreciate it," Ford smiled. "Me too. I'm glad we could trust each other," Luna replied warmly. "How did the writing session with Dawn go yesterday?" "Oh good, I got most of the song done." Dusk felt more embarrassed. Given that the song was a diss against Ford, she quickly tried to change the subject to avoid the awkwardness. "How did the music planning video going? I'm sorry I wasn't there for it. There was so thoughtless of me." "It was pretty good, although we wanted to confirm things with you before we finalized anything," Ford responded. "We had a couple of things we needed to check with Gus on, but I think we've got a solid idea. We'll have an intro here when we're thinking about showing the new footage to Mayor Corey about announcing the pipeline, and then we're going to show us about the park in Auburn and seeing the atrocities before the first chorus. Then I think we should have a little intrude before we start the first verse. So we're planning on how horrified we are to see what happened to the park as a result of the pipeline. Then during the first verse, we showed how the protest was going. First time though, we're not quite sure how that worked, since we didn't get enough footage of the protest," Luna explained. "We're all thinking about just spicing up the footage from the protest last week," Ford clarified. Then in chorus, we show the workers being neglected and not addressing the leak, followed by the construction workers calling the mayor, and us celebrating at the end when the mayor shuts down the construction. What do you think?" "I like it. But isn't this supposed to be convincing to the mayor?" Dusk asked. "I don't see in us we'd show celebrating it when we don't even know the outcome's going to be yet." "Actually, we've got a really good point," Luna nodded. "Maybe the video could be stronger if we give our audience the call action at the end of the video instead of celebrating. That's where we love the earth with all your fire bit could come in." I was able to zoom in and get a close-up of that pipe leak in a bit. I was saying to Luna yesterday that would be some pretty compelling imagery if we used that in the video. "Whoa, that'd be wicked," Dusk agreed. "If the mayor agrees with us and shuts the pipeline down, we can always cut back to the Auburn before we put the video out, and we edit the footage in of the mayor shutting down the construction, and us celebrating at the very end. That's when we have the call to action and to love the earth quote." "I love that," Ford replied. "I can give Gus a call after work today and give him the go-ahead with his cameraman to start editing the footage. Alright, that's a great idea. No reason why to waste time when he's already got the camera footage, Luna added. I think this is going to be an amazing video, Dusk chimed in, feeling a bit relieved to have a distraction from the awkwardness of her messed up yesterday. Dusk was serious about her promise, and she generally felt very guilty about directly breaking the promise like that. She trusted Fawn and Luna a lot, so she didn't want to be an ass who betrayed their trust. From this moment forward, she promised herself that she'd do better about feeling information about upcoming band projects. Besides reflecting on it, she agrees with Fawn and Luna that keeping new projects was just between them was a little bit more special when they did and unveiled them to the world. Work at Jack's had gone quickly today. There was a moderate amount of people that came in for breakfast and lunch, but not a ton. Jack had remarked that business usually went down in winter due to people want to remain home and save money for Christmas. The girls were back to not discussing music today, but they were all on the same page about the video, so that all they could do was share their ideas with Gus on Thursday afternoon's meeting. Hey girls, Jack greeted. Working on the music video today? Yep, finally, Dusk chuckled. That's great to hear, Jack said with his trademark hearty chuckle. That reminds me. I was thinking it might be fun to do a concert for the customers here before Christmas, just to bring them in more what they usually get pretty slow at this time. Will you girls be able to be willing to do a concert here in a couple weeks? Yeah, that should work, Fawn agreed. What time are you thinking? Dusk asked. I was thinking maybe that Wednesday before Christmas and around dinner hour. What time works best for you girls? Jack asked. How about at 6 p.m., Luna suggested. That'll be perfect, Jack said, spinning around as he heard a ding at the door. Oh, I see a customer's in. I better go serve them. Sorry to interrupt you, girls. Speaking of music, as Jack walked away, Dusk's mind began to wander back, returning to Dayton's house to finish up that song. Now that fame's been resolved with Fawn and Luna, she obviously wouldn't want to save the song or put it on any album, but she figured she may as well finish it. And honestly, she wasn't so sure if she'd come up with anything better at this short time in the window. Hey, Dusk spoke up immediately, worried about the reaction. I think I'm gonna go hang out with Dawn. I still have to finish that song before Friday, and I guess I have the time, since the video is pretty much done. Sounds great. Have a good time, Fawn wished. Hope the songwriting goes well, Luna added. Thanks, Dusk smiled. See you guys tonight. Dusk had been feeling a bit of tense since the previous day, between the anxiety she had prior to talking to Fawn and Luna, and fearing that people wouldn't like the video. Part of her wondered why she was so worried, since they would always put out another single, if this one failed miserably. However, she felt a lot of pressure and piqued people's interest that they were still paying attention from their first single. She felt extremely important to follow up the moderate success of Hex Girl with something really strong. Otherwise, it could easily fit in the abyss of being one-hit wonders. However, she tried not to let this anxiety drift away, and Dawn approached the house. So you haven't said anything about what happened with Fawn? Spilled the beans? Dawn finally said. Dusk felt a bit unspoken pressure from Dawn of what to say. She ripped Fawn a new one, but she didn't want to lie and give Dawn the find out differently later. Hoping Fawn and Luna wouldn't find out what she had told Dawn had been her ass before, and she wasn't about to let that happen again. We talked and agreed that we'll talk to each other before releasing any information about the top secret band projects, Dusk replied. So you mean to say you gave in to Fawn's pressure? Dawn teased. No, Dusk sternly replied back. All of us, including me, agree that we decide that what's best to discuss whatever not to share or share the upcoming projects. I trust you and all, but we've got to keep a few things in our back pocket to surprise people with. Alright? Oh, Dusk, Dawn laughed. It's fine if you can't share the things with me now, but someday we'll work up the confidence to stand up to Fawn. Dusk immediately considered arguing back, but she stopped herself. She had already had enough in her mind, so it wasn't worth creating another source of anxiety for herself by starting an argument with Dawn. But even she didn't appreciate and continues to attempts to vilify Fawn. So, what are you going to work on today? Dusk asked, changing the subject. I've got to finish up this song. I'm meeting with my new manager tomorrow, so I need to touch up a few things, Dawn informed. Hey, you want to sit outside today? Admittedly, for a December day, it was actually pretty warm. It was 45 degrees. It was a decent temperature for dusk, although Fawn and Luna usually laminated about anything below 50. To her, 45 was a sweatshirt weather. She never got practically cold easily. The snow from the other day had all melted, so Dusk actually liked the idea of sitting outside for something different. Yeah, that'd be great, Dusk agreed. Perhaps sitting outside and looking at nature would be a nice change of scenery. Dusk felt very peaceful, sitting out in the patio, writing the rest of her song. The patio overlooked a small grove of trees in the field, but they were all dead and their residues of fall leaves dangled off from several winding branches, so the trees were still quite beautiful. Dusk found this gentle afternoon breeze a bit peaceful. She lounged on the outdoor rocking chair, which she had a cushion that Dawn had brought out for them to use as the closest to the house. She had felt very productive and finished writing the remaining lyrics about within the hour. She wasn't quite ready to leave the place out of the house yet, so she turned to Dawn, who was still at hard working and editing her song. Hey, do you want a second pair of eyes on your song? Dusk asked kindly. Actually, that'd be great, Dawn nodded, handing her the paper. I'm just stuck on one lyric. Dawn pointed out the lyric at the bottom of the second verse. Stand in my own despair, I wished you'd care. Dusk saw what the brunette meant. The lyrics was decent, but the word standing was a little basic. What about exchanging standing now for something like marinating? Dusk suggested. Yeah, I like that, thanks, Dawn replied. She quickly scribbled down the correction. I finished up my song, Dusk informed. Oh, nice, Dawn said. Looking forward to seeing you on Friday. Admittedly, Dawn's complete lack of enthusiasm a little bit, but she sort of why Dawn wanted to wait until Friday to give in at the same time. It almost felt dismissive, and she didn't really seem to care about Dusk's work. She didn't really understand why Dawn didn't want her to read the song right away, especially as she seemed to want Dusk to read her song. Dusk remembered back to when Dawn seemed excited and so enthusiastic about having her friend over who was a member of the band, but it seemed that all of her excitement had waned in the past month, and with the band's lack of releasing any material, thankfully Dusk was confident to change it soon when they released their video. Dusk, Fawn, and Luna were just finishing up their lunch at Jack's. They now officially made it past the halfway point of the week, and boy, the week had been busy. Today was the one day Dusk didn't have anything going on after work, which she was thankful for. With how busy it had going on in the afternoons, she needed a bit of a breather before meeting with Gus tomorrow, followed by their meeting with the mayor on Friday. I'm in the mood to get a drink from Haley's on the way home, Fawn informed. Are you guys okay with stopping? Actually, that sounds good, Luna agreed. I could go for a treat. Yeah, I'd be down for that, Dusk nodded in the information. I saw a sign this morning saying they're now selling peppermint mocha. That's an odd comment for somebody supposedly opposed to calling it caffeinated milkshakes coffee. Luna laughed. Were you thinking of trying one? Well, as a matter of fact, I was, Dusk sassed back playfully. I was wrong. I would still drink it more often or call it coffee, but I'll have to admit it was pretty good. Besides, I haven't had one in a month since we were in Nashville. Fawn chuckled in response. Ready to head out? Yep, Luna nodded. As Dusk got up as well, while walking out of the car, Dusk's mind turned to processing on what she had just been in just only a month since they were in Nashville. She couldn't believe that chapter in her life wasn't that far in the past because it felt like an eternity ago. It just felt like Dawn and the other songwriters had been a part of her life for so much longer than a few weeks.